Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our latest edition of What Caught My Eye, or WCME, where we bring you the biggest and best, most notable events from the sporting landscape on the court, on the ice, on the rink, wherever it is. That's what we're looking for. We're trying to bring that to you each week. As a reminder, make sure you follow us on our Instagram, Facebook, X at WCME_sports. Our shows drop every Wednesday at noon. Just to let you guys know, make that aware. We have our website. If you haven't been to it, it's great. It's awesome. You get to learn more about us, about our show. That's WCMEsports.com. Without further ado, my name is the coach, Nick Vesci. I'm joined, as always, by the boy, Stephen Vesci, and the man, Stephen Comlow.
Hello.
Oh, thank you for that.
Every show he just gets a hello.
Yep. That's what I wanted. You know that plays really well in Guatemala. Our Guatemalan listeners, that's what they key in on every time.
Oh, I'm gonna do an accent.
Yeah. Please don't. Please don't.
An accent.
All right. Well, each week we like to start off with our top catch, our first thing we look forward to or looked back at and said this was our most notable thing. And this week it was the French Open, the second major of the tennis season. Your first major is the Aussie Open in January, but our French Open, the one played on the red clay at Roland Garros, where they're actually going to play the Olympics this year, is going to be at Roland Garros. So we kind of got a little sneak peek of what you might see and who you might see contend, because this surface is very unique. It's different than playing on the hard courts, very much. So first thing for the French Open I wanted to bring up was Iga Swiatek, number one female player in the world. She won again at the French Open. She's making a case for being the queen of clay because she won her third straight French Open title and her fourth title in 5 years at Roland Garros. She defeated number 12, Jasmine Paolini of Italy, 6-2, 6-1 in the finals. It was the 21st straight victory for Swiatek at Roland Garros, which is fourth all-time for women. She's behind Hall of Famers Chris Evert, who won 29 times. Not Chris Everett.
Check that.
Jim Rome.
Jim Rome. That's all I can think about is that Jim Rome.
Bet I do. Chris.
Bet I do.
I had a feeling you would get a kick out of that. 25 wins in a row was Monica Seles, and 24 wins in a row was Justine Henin. Not Justine Henin Ardennes. She dropped that like Jan Levinson dropped Gould. But she had won 24 in a row. So Swiatek is looking to kind of close in on history if she hasn't already done so. It's kind of amazing. She only lost one set the entire tournament. Whole tournament, lost one set, and that was in the second round when she was playing four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka, who just happens to be seated lower because she kind of took a hiatus, had a kid, hadn't been playing as much, so you kind of wind up getting those types of good players on draws sometimes when you're the number one seed. But that was the only set she lost the whole tournament, ran the place like she has been doing the last 5 years. Swiatek is 5-0 in major finals in her career, which is amazing. It means she gets there, she doesn't lose, right?
Good God.
So she's kind of solidified herself as the number one player in the world. She's the person to beat, like we've talked about in golf with Scottie Scheffler and Nelly Korda. And Swiatek for tennis is starting to kind of creep up on that way of, if she's in the tournament, she's the favorite. And especially with Serena's, she hasn't officially said she's retired, but she's basically retired. Without those other like dominant players like Serena, Swiatek's kind of taken the reins and said, this is now my game, right? Ash Barty retired when she was number one in the world a couple years ago. And you've kind of seen Iga step up, right? Iga is from Poland, by the way, if you didn't know that.
How old is she?
She's 23.
Yeah, she's pretty young. Yeah. So
she has only 4 losses on the year. She turned pro in 2016.
Yeah.
Good God.
So when she was 15 years old, she turned pro.
That happens. I remember Coco Gauff, who we'll talk about here in a second. She was, I think, 15 when she beat Venus and went on that run at Wimbledon a few years back.
That's crazy.
Coco's still 20, right? Tennis is weird that way. There was a time when John Isner, I don't know if you know him, the 6'11" guy, big serve, right? That was his serve and volley, and he would always play in tie breaks because he could never break the other guy's serve because he couldn't move as well, just because he was 7 feet tall. But there was a time where he was like the only person on tour who had like even gone to college. Yeah, he got his degree. It's either Georgia or Georgia Tech. I forget where Isner went. I think it's Georgia. But there was a time.
Research department.
Yeah, there was a time because he was ranked in the top 10. It was like he's the only player in the top 10 men's or women's who like went to college. And we're starting to see that trend the other way though. That historically tennis has been a sport like that where you get in like that age. Like if you're not turning pro by 17, you're not going to be successful. It's like kind of that cutthroat and crazy. But we're seeing,
he's a bulldog.
We're seeing people like Isner, who was a top 10 player in the world. Danielle Collins from UVA, who was a top 10 player in the world. Ben Shelton from Florida, he's top 15 in the world. Peyton Stearns from Texas, she's riding up the rankings. So you're starting to see that trend the other way, but it used to be like Swiatek's path was your only way to go. Like Sharapova, when she won, she was so young. Right? Garbina Muguruza, when she went on her run, she was young. So that's happened before, but Swiatek looks like she is exactly in her prime. So we talk about great athletes, how we see them all the time, and you have your up, you have your bell curve, right? We talk about Mike Trout and that bell curve we've seen, and he's on his downslope. Swiatek's in that height. I mean, the next few years.
What's the prime? What's the prime for tennis? Is it 20 to 25? And most other sports is like baseball is 26 to 32.
My mentality was always that like if you have the skill, like tennis is ageless.
Well,
no, your joints,
not at the highest level. You can play tennis is one of those sports like golf that as a schmucks like us, we can play forever. We can go out and play tennis
now.
And play pickleball.
Yeah, we've even made tennis obsolete because we're too lazy to play tennis. We play pickleball.
Yeah, the most American thing ever. But yeah, that's what tennis was often billed at, is like a lifelong sport that you can play whenever. But like when you're talking about competing at this level, prime is pretty young. Now it's because of the technology we have in the training. Like we've seen Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Serena, all old and all winning majors, and that was unprecedented. Never happened before those four. No one, either men or women, were able to do that before we saw them. And that's why a lot of people consider them the four best players, men or women, ever, because they were able to do stuff no one's ever seen. But still, I would say your prime is still like, between 23 to 26 is probably your prime still in tennis. But you're able to compete. Like there's Grigor Dimitrov, I think, is like 33, and he's at his highest ranking ever from, where's he from, Bulgaria or Hungary? I forget which one. I think it's Bulgaria. But you're seeing more and more guys be able to do that, but it's still hard. Like you said, boy, on your joints. Like all of these guys' injuries, like Andy Murray, it was a hip injury. That's what's kind of caused his career. Basically,
I mean, there's literally a diagnosis called tennis elbow.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I'm looking more at the knees. Yeah,
it's hips. Andy Murray was hips. Nadal was hips. Djokovic, we're going to talk about, later.
Hips, baby.
Yeah, it's all in the hips. Federer kind of had issues with all, like you said, you just kind of, it wears you down. There's a lot of pounding your body does because you're out on the courts. Every match for these guys is, at least a couple hours. So you do that so often. It's just you. It's not like you can go, hey, coach, I need a breather. Can I go sit on the bench for a timeout and a commercial break and come back in? You don't have that. You're out there the whole time. But Swiatek, I thought, is kind of, we might be seeing the next great one in Iga Swiatek.
Hold on, real quick, before you move on from her, I have a couple questions about ladies tennis, and I guess just tennis in general. When you win a big event in tennis, is it normal to you get the trophy or the cup or whatever? Is it normal that they put something in the cup?
Like you drink out of it?
No, so I saw this article that said that when she won, she got the trophy, and I don't know the name of the trophy for the French Open.
I don't know.
It's something crazy, I'm sure. Foreign. But she apparently reportedly opened it up, looked inside, and was like, and closed it. And then like in an interview she gave later, she said, "Well, when I won at Flushing Meadows, Flushing, what was the last tournament she won? Whatever the Flushing Meadows, that's what it was. When she won her last tournament, she opened the trophy up and someone had put like an Italian tiramisu in there." And she was like over the moon about it and was like, "Oh, heck yeah, thank you so much. This is incredible. Who did this?" And I guess she was disappointed that her French Open trophy was treatless.
It's a Suzanne Langland Cup is the name of the trophy.
No, that's not common. I guess the one she would have won before was in Rome. I think because that was the clay court tune-up right before this was in Rome, which would make sense why they put tiramisu in the trophy. No, I've never heard of it. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
a lot of trophies I've seen aren't always like a cup. I've seen like kind of they have like the plate. I think
tennis trophies are weird, man.
Well, they gotta look good in the display case. That's what we're talking about here at the club.
I saw like the Para French Open. They just got platters. They just got like silver like lunch trays.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
The trophies for the French Open are pretty sweet. The women's cup is no,
it looks
sweet.
Good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I moving on to the men's side. No, Kamlo Milos did not win. Sorry. I didn't know if you. Yep, too good. I didn't know if you had his sound queued up.
No,
and wanted
I didn't.
To
the
play
second
that.
You brought it up, I went, damn.
Yeah, no, Milos did not win. Sorry,
this guy. Oh gosh.
These balls is Zach Rocket.
He's a little baby.
But Carlos Alcaraz of Spain did win. And he beat Alexander Zverev, or Sasha Zverev, as we talked about before. He had a common nickname for Alexander. He beat Zverev in 5 sets in the final. Alcaraz was a 3 seed, Zverev the 4 seed. In the final 2 sets, he kind of just mowed him down. 6-1, 6-2, he won the final 2 sets, which is kind of amazing that you get stronger as the match goes on. Because like we said, they were out there for over 4 hours in the sun and the heat. And that's a long time on your feet, running, sprinting, doing all that stuff. So it was kind of amazing. And I think part of how he wore him down is Zverev spent the most time on court for this whole tournament than anyone has since 1991. So that he was winning all these 5-set matches to get to the final and lose in 5 sets. So he kind of, pushed the limits of what we've seen from a kind of a player before, which may have contributed to it. But Alcaraz does kind of have that ability. He's very similar to watching, like if you combine Djokovic and Nadal, they get everything back. You can't get the ball past them. And eventually they'll throw some winner out there that you're so exhausted you can't get to it. And you don't know what happened. And they just motor past you. But for Alcaraz, it's his first French Open title. Right? He had previously won the 2022 U.S. Open and the 2023, so last year's Wimbledon. So he's won major away, the Australian Open, from completing the career Grand Slam. He's won a major now in each of the last 3 seasons. He's the youngest man to make it to the finals on all 3 surfaces. So you got clay, you have grass, and you have the hard court. And which means he's the youngest to ever win on all 3 surfaces. And there's actually only been 7 players who have ever won on all 3 surfaces, which is kind of crazy to think about that he's only 21. So he's already matched these guys. And these names are kind of, legendary. There's only one that I wasn't familiar with. But you have Mats Wilander, Jimmy Connors, Andre Agassi with the hair and the lack thereof, Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. So Alcaraz has already done something and done things that are on the same level as those guys who are, like we were just saying, Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal, the 3 best to ever play. And he's already kind of on that. So in the same way that we bring up Swiatek possibly being the heir apparent, Alcaraz seems poised to do that with what he's already accomplished at 21 years old.
That dude is a freak athlete,
yes, he is.
Like, for 21 years old and, like, some of the stuff that he does, like, I know, like, ESPN and, like all the, like, sports networks love showing the clip of him, like, soccer juggling the tennis ball and kicking it, whatever. Yeah. But like that dude's a gamer. That dude could probably play any sport he wanted to.
He's also he's the size too. He's only 6 feet.
Correct,
which is surprising for a men's tennis player.
Yes, because Djokovic is like 6'4". Nadal is Nadal and Federer weren't like that tall, but I think they're both like 6'2". So Alcaraz, I believe, is the shortest of all of
Nadal's 6'1"
of those guys. Which, like I said, that is amazing because normally, like, not only is you get the length, right? You have sometimes on the serve that allows you, like, just same way we talk about a pitcher, right? A tall pitcher, when they release the ball, it's so much closer to you. You cut down reaction time. When you serve and you're that much taller, like a John Isner, the reaction time is so cut down. So like when he's serving the ball and it's going like 140 miles an hour, well, it feels faster than that too because it's longer release. But Alcaraz doesn't have that advantage. He's 6 feet tall.
Usually that length creates like some whip, right?
Yep. And so it just shows that's how strong of an athlete he is too, like physically strong, that he can hammer out winners. Like Zverev looked so much taller than him out there. I think Zverev is tall. He might be like 6'6", but you're right. It is kind of interesting that comparing Alcaraz to these guys, he's smaller, but he's possibly again going to do what these guys did. You hope for that sake because this was possibly Rafa's last French Open because of the injuries he sustained. Federer has officially retired. You don't know how much longer we have left with Djokovic, so we may be seeing the end, and we're going to need someone to step up and take that mantle. And Alcaraz seems poised for that.
Did you see if any of the coverage or any of the news outlets had anything about like his training regimen, or if he has any overlap in like coaches with Nadal? Because I know they're both Spanish, and I might just be generalizing because they're both very good, very successful Spanish tennis players. But like, I wonder if their trainers or training regimen or like the way they came up is similar.
I think Alcaraz came up through Nadal's camp, like his academy. I think is probably the better term. I'm sure. He had to have, right? I'm sure Nadal's academy is the preeminent academy in Spain, and Alcaraz is so good that there's. You'd have to be almost crazy to reject that kid from coming to your academy. So I'm pretty sure he went through that. So he's had familiarity with like the way Rafa would train or the way he would be coached. And I think you kind of see that the way he plays, the way he gets to everything. Sometimes he plays so far back the way Nadal had before because he makes sure you get to everything. But yeah, Alcaraz seems pretty legit to me, right? 21, you got 3 majors. Said you can't really argue.
And that's what I watched too. Like so when I had a chance to like sit down and watch some tennis this weekend, his match happened to be on. I think the women's had either just finished, or it was like a commercial break or something. So I was watching some of his match, and it's impressive. The dude looks really, really good. I didn't know all that about all the different about all his wins on the different court types, but I mean, I think anyone that looks comfortable on clay is probably going to be good on at a minimum grass as well. But he looked really good. I'm excited to watch him. I think we're in for something special. Call me crazy, but we're in for something special with this.
Well, we're he's going to try to make it back to back at Wimbledon coming up here in a few weeks. I think last year when he won Wimbledon, he had won the grass court tune-up event the week or 2 weeks prior, and he was the first person ever to win those back-to-back. No one had ever won the grass court tune-up and won Wimbledon, and he was the first person. Because that just again, it shows what an athlete he is on that level, that he's able to do stuff that other people haven't before. And in a lot of ways, he doesn't get talked about as much, kind of because Djokovic is still hanging around and still successful. I think that's kind of what's taking some of the luster away from Alcaraz. But moving on, the other thing I was going to cover was the women's doubles final at Roland Garros. So Coco Gauff, the American, she was paired with Katerina Siniakova from, I believe, the Czech Republic. And they defeated the aforementioned Jasmine Paolini, who had lost in the singles final. She was paired with Sara Errani. And kind of crazy, Paolini gets the finals in doubles and singles, but loses both of them. That's like such an amazing tournament. You can get to the finals in both things, but then it's kind of like deflating because you walk away going, God, like I was so close to coming away with 2 of the big trophies, but instead I get the dinner plate, right?
You said she got paired with Siniakova. They don't pick their own partners?
They do, but what's interesting is that this is the first time Coco and Siniakova were paired together at a major. They had never played a major tournament together doubles wise. I had never seen Coco play with this girl before. So that was the first time they were paired together, and they were able to win the tournament, which is amazing. It's the first Grand Slam doubles title for Coco. Coco has a U.S. Open on the singles side, but this was her first Grand Slam doubles. But Siniakova is like a doubles specialist. She's a former world number one in doubles. She has now 8 Grand Slam or majors. Grand Slam and major is the same for tennis. Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert. So she now has 8 Grand Slam doubles titles. This was her third French Open win. I believe she also has the career Grand Slam. So she's won each of the tournaments, each of the majors in doubles. So, the headliner there is that Coco won. I mean, Coco's a phenomenal doubles player too. But it almost seems like kind of like this perfect storm of you paired her with Siniakova, who's at this point, a phenomenal doubles player. You get 8 majors, you're doing something right. So I thought that was cool. Thought it was also kind of interesting that Paolini wound up, again, that's just so heartbreaking to me that you're good enough. You've had such a good tournament. Think all the time you're out on the court, because we just talked about how long you're out there for singles. You got to turn that around and play a doubles match. You're out there so long and you come up runner-up in both of them. But it's like such an amazing accomplishment, but such a deflating feeling. It's like the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat kind of playing out there, because it's got to be her best finishes in majors. But the last thing for the French Open I wanted to bring up was that there's going to be a new number one on the men's side. So new world number one, because the aforementioned Novak Djokovic had to withdraw ahead of his quarterfinal match against Casper Ruud. He sustained a knee injury during his 5-set win over Francisco Cerundolo in the round of 16. And he actually partially tore his meniscus, I think was the injury. And he did it during the second set, I think, of that match. So he played 3 full sets, one with things that we would have been, crying about, which is amazing. But he's going to have surgery. I think he just had the surgery, before the French Open even ended.
Is amazing the word to describe it, though? I mean, I get that it's gritty and it's tough and everything, but for a dude of his age doing what he does, I mean, I'd imagine that he probably did a lot more damage to it.
It's about the indomitable spirit of humankind. That's why it's amazing.
Okay. I understand that.
That it's like Willis. It's like Willis Reed walking out there with a broken leg in the NBA Finals, right? It's you shouldn't be able to do it. Maybe it's not a good idea to be doing it, but I'm out here giving everything I have because that's all I know, and that's the right thing to do. But again, what the crappy part is in tennis, when you do that, the play Ruud got what they call a walkover, meaning Ruud didn't have to play a quarterfinal match; he walked right into the semifinals, right? And that's kind of crummy, where it's like, okay, well, why not let Cerundolo, who almost beat Djokovic, why not let him play Ruud? It doesn't work that way in tennis. So that's kind of the crummy part. That happened a couple years ago. I want to say it was at Wimbledon with Nadal. Nadal got hurt, and he was supposed to play, I think, Nick Kyrgios in the semis, and Nadal had to withdraw, and Kyrgios walked right into the finals. But yeah, so he's gonna hopefully make it to Wimbledon. Djokovic said he's still unsure. But it would be kind of a shame. And like we talked about with all these other guys, his contemporaries, Nadal and Federer, kind of exiting and aging out, you hope that this isn't what's going to cause Djokovic to age out, because he's getting up there. He's almost 40 years old. But, so he'll lose his number one world ranking, which is crazy. He was still ranked 1. Yannick Sinner from
UVA.
No, from Italy.
Oh, I was like, what? I was like, God.
No, I did.
He definitely all right. That name,
reflex, though.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't even. Yeah,
I wasn't even paying attention.
I wasn't paying attention at all. Sinner. Well, because Sinner always bothers me, or I guess catches me off guard. I should say bothers me. It catches me off guard that he's Italian because his last name's Sinner.
Yeah, he's from north central Italy.
Repent.
Way up. But no, he's full Italian. He's
Swiss border.
He's from way up there. I think Tyrol is the province. There's a lot of, it's still Italy, but he's Italian. he'll take over the world number 1 ranking. He won the Australian Open this year.
Wait, so where's Alcaraz or whatever?
Alcaraz is Spanish.
No, but I mean, like, where does he fall into the rankings?
Alcaraz
after
was
this?
3rd. I don't know if he jumps Djokovic and pushes Djokovic down.
I see him at 2 right now.
So he means he probably jumps Djokovic
Okay.
then. But yeah, just thought that was interesting. Hopefully, it's not the end of Djokovic, and we get to see him play more. But again, he's getting old. Before we move on, anything else?
Well, soon.
Do you have Dead Air queued up so we can play that?
I can have it queued up and.
The career earnings right now of the champs, Iga and Alcaraz, are almost identical through their young careers. They've each gotten over 31 million in career earnings. That's amazing. Yeah, so I was thinking, would you rather play tennis? They're almost equal. It's pretty.
Resumes?
Yeah, it's pretty identical.
Yeah, Alcaraz has 3 majors. Swiatek has 5, but Swiatek's won the French Open 4 times, whereas Alcaraz is, like we said, 1 major away from a career Grand Slam. So, like the boy said, it's you flip a coin. What would you rather have?
Iga's got more career singles matches, but Alcaraz last year made 15 mil.
Yeah,
would you rather be a golfer or a tennis player when it comes to this?
Golfer.
So, and yeah, part of me wants to say golfer because of the it's the difficulty on your body,
baby.
Oh, the sponsorships for tennis are probably astronomical.
I do you know the brand that Adam Scott wears? Uniqlo. It's a weird brand. Federer was the first athlete they signed towards the end of Federer's career, and I want to say it was like I want to say it was a 2-year, $80 million contract he got.
I mean, they usually have Rolex.
$40 million a year just to wear their stupid shirt. I mean, great shirt.
I think tennis sponsorships might.
Let me walk that back.
I think the tennis sponsorships might be better because it's more, I guess, popular. European popular. I guess golf is more similar too.
My forte. I'm a big polo and khakis guy.
Not a big Rolex. Well, I guess that's in both, but I mean, a lot of it goes back and forth.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah, a lot of it overlaps. I mean, like Lacoste, I gotta think is paying Djokovic a crap load of money for all these years he's worn Lacoste. He's like the only guy out there wearing it, so you gotta think he's getting paid a lot.
I mean, it's kind of like Alcaraz and Iga winning these events. They've so far their prize money this year has been Alcaraz $4,500,000, Iga 6.6. I just wanted to see what Scotty Scheffler was doing.
To try to make a comparison.
Yeah, just to kind of see, a little bit. Scheffler so far this year has made 24 million.
I was gonna say 25, but yeah. But the thing with tennis though that may be a benefit is that you're only competing against one person at a time, right? Whereas in golf, right, I'm competing against the course, right? That's what I said. I'm competing against the course, but I could play my best and someone else could have like the most unworldly tournament and beat me. Whereas in tennis, I just have to beat that person across from me. So I have almost more under my control. I just got to beat this one person, advance to this next person. And I think that's why you see the tennis players win more majors is because it's, you'd have to pull an upset like we see in like a tournament versus I just catch fire for 2 rounds and post 2 low scores and I've snuck out a major. It's hard because then you have to keep pulling upsets and that's so difficult to do.
Or you could also, commit yourself to one terrain in tennis, right? Like I'm going to be like the hard court dominator.
I think that the issue with that would be that they have different seasons for it. Like we just finished clay court season. So there were several events, like the last 2 months we're just playing clay court events. So it's like you're going to punt on 2 months where that's going to hurt your ranking so much that now when you get into your hard court that you specialized in, your ranking is too low. You now draw Djokovic in the first round and now you're screwed as opposed to, I built my ranking up by doing so well on the other surfaces. And now I've moved myself to rank 22 and I only have to play Djokovic in like the round of 16.
But, do you think there are some tennis players out there that are, I really don't want to go play in the French Open.
Yes.
I suck on clay.
Yes.
Whereas
100%.
like if you say that about golf, like I suck on grass. Like
Like a links course, can't do it.
Yeah,
but there are guys
that's
that hate going to the British Open.
Oh, I
in
believe
golf.
it.
It's the same thing.
100% believe it.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I was going to bring up, boy, this was a more of a geology rock thing. So
here we go.
The clay everywhere in the world except for the U.S. is red because it's crushed brick.
It's oxidized iron.
Yeah,
it's crushed brick. Is that
it's
what?
Crushed brick. Yeah. That's what the clay is made
okay.
of. The clay in the U.S. is what they call green. It looks like gray green.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that is crushed? What crushed rock that is?
The gray green. It's probably like a. I would have to think like a diabase or something.
It's basalt, crushed basalt.
Okay.
For whatever
Close.
reason,
igneous rock.
Here in America, there's like a specific brand, and I forget what they call it, but that's all we play on.
It's like how all of the dirt for like the warning tracks for baseball all comes out of the same spot in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I believe that.
So it's similar to that.
Yeah,
I think they did it for the London series. I know 2 years ago or last year, or whatever. Whenever they started the London series, they shipped all that stuff, all the clay from Western Pennsylvania, to London for that. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I learned that this year, and I was like, that's
that
so
rocks.
Weird. Do you have that queued up, Kamlo?
I really should have, man.
Come on, what are we paying you for?
Hey, don't take it for granted.
Where's our intern? Hey, intern, get over here. Yeah, don't take it for.
There we go. Timing's awful.
Wow, D, you're late.
You're late.
Wow, you're late.
You don't have Milos keyed up?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, then we're going to move on from tennis, and our next big things that we'll talk about are going to involve our finals updates. Because if you didn't know, right now we're in the middle of the NBA finals and the NHL finals. So on the NBA side, you have the Boston Celtics, who had the best record in the NBA this year. They're taking on the Dallas Mavericks, who were the 5 seed out of the East and kind of went through a buzzsaw on the Timberwolves to make it to the finals. But the Celtics are up 2-0. They've played 2 games, both in Boston. They're up 2-0 in the series. The big storyline for Boston was that they're getting back center Kristaps Porzingis from.
Where is he from? Is he from Serbia?
Latvia.
Latvia. Okay.
Latvian Orthodox.
Is he Latvian Orthodox?
Maybe. When we ask Costanza.
Fada.
I said Fada. I meant father. But Porzingis.
I think the hats are my favorite thing from Latvia.
But Porzingis came back. He had missed the previous 10 games, basically the whole playoffs, before coming back in the finals, and immediately was a massive impact. Like what I had said before, I didn't think the Celtics could win the finals regardless of who they played without Porzingis, because the difference he makes and the pressure he takes off Tatum and Brown, and how he adjusts things defensively, right? Makes the other offense have to work and operate differently. And you saw that. That was so evident in game 1. It was crazy. He came off the bench. He only played about 20 to 25 minutes, but he scored 20 points, was lights out offensively, was so effective, and he was the difference maker in that game.
I think he averaged a point a minute, but the stuff that is a little more difficult to translate to paper is what he contributes on defense. Because yes, you can quantify blocks and steals, but what you can't really quantify unless you're watching is what he takes away, right? I'm sure there were several times down the court where Luka and Kyrie didn't even look his way because we're not going to put the ball over there. Kristaps is all over it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, you mentioned it. The remember we talked about last week, or last couple weeks, the alley oops they've had, and the absolute insane number of alley oops. Kristaps you saw it multiple times. He's right in that spot. Lively's been not ineffective.
Non-existent.
Yeah.
Didn't even know he was there. Whereas he was fantastic before. Daniel Gafford was fantastic. But then so you haven't noticed them, and that is all to Porzingis, but also to Doug pointed this out when we had the great Doug Howard on before, that Minnesota for whatever reason switched every pick, and that put Gobert on Doncic or Kyrie, and Gobert can't guard those guys. As great of a defender as he is, he can't guard them. But Boston's not switching their picks; they're hedging and backing off, and Porzingis is clogging up where Gobert probably should have been, clogging that up, taking away the lobs and any pocket passes and all that. And like you said, Kamalo, you can't really quantify that. Like, well, maybe he'll get a deflection, but a deflection doesn't mean a steal, right? You're disrupting rhythm. You're throwing off timing. You're making them not do their A game, right? Their A play, right? You're making them do something that's not their best strength, and that, in a lot of ways, is what you want out of defenses. Don't allow them to do the thing they want. Make them do something else.
I think
So
out of
he's
rhythm
been
is
great.
I think out of rhythm is definitely the best way to describe the Mavs offense, because shots that we've seen Luka, Kyrie, all of those guys make all playoffs were struggles. Every shot was contested, whether it was a layup or a 3-pointer, and I think just the timing didn't feel right when watching their shots. Like Luka driving the lane, getting the contact, and hitting that like short range like fadeaway jumper that he is so good at hitting normally, wasn't there. Like, it looked like the Mavs were like, I can't say struggling with enough emphasis.
Yeah, it did. It looked difficult, made things difficult, and that is, we talked about before. Like, you could play the best defense ever in basketball, and the greatest shot will always beat you. But if you're playing great defense and you're making them have to work for the perfect shot every time, it's going to wear you down. It's going to wear you down physically, and it's going to wear you down mentally. And I think, like you said, Conley, it's what it looked like Mavs wise. Even though you could say, well, Doncic put up good numbers,
but he has to, right?
He has to.
He has to, because of that, out of rhythm, he's not getting the alley oops. He's not getting the open looks to other guys. He has to be the guy, and for him to carry all that weight, and he's going to put up the numbers just because he's that good, and he'll make those difficult shots every now and then. It looks exhausting for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do want to highlight in Game 2, again, another Celtics victory at home, but Drew Holiday. I believe they said the only one on the Celtics who has a ring. I think he won in Milwaukee.
Yes, correct.
I could be wrong. But the only one with the ring. Game 2 went off, 26 points, 11 boards, but a more amazing thing is 0 turnovers. Right. I mean, that is like being as effective as you could possibly be. And that's just offensively. Defensively, he's been fantastic. I think Doug kind of brought it up of him guarding guys like Doncic and Irving. And one thing Doug said was, well, is him and Peyton Pritchard, are they going to be big enough to handle the physicality? And he has shown that he's up to the challenge. He's been fantastic defensively. So that's, like a dream performance. But when you have to win championships, you're going to need that. Basically, you use your third, fourth option, maybe even fifth option to steal a game. And that's how you win championships.
There's another guy that looked great in, sparing minutes in Game 1 from UVA, Sam Hauser. He was awesome. He was guarding Luka one-on-one and held his own. I mean, that's another thing, that he comes in for 5 minutes or so, gives a guy a breather, makes it tough for the best player on the other team when you're thinking, okay, now I got Luka's going to roll here for a quick 5 or 6 points or whatever and kind of get back into it. And then Sam Hauser gets in his grill and stays in front of him and does a great job contesting shots. And it's got to be frustrating for a guy like Luka.
Yeah, absolutely. And frustrating, out of rhythm. I think these are all apt descriptions of what we've seen out of Dallas.
One other thing too with Porzingis back is the depth for Boston. Having him back, just giving that one extra guy, showing off that depth has been incredible, to where Tatum and Brown, they can be basketball players now. They don't have to carry all the weight. They don't have to be stars. They don't have to score every time down the court. They don't have to be the best defender. They're free to play basketball and
Yeah.
make correct basketball decisions. And I think that's been pretty evident during this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I guess, ironic and a little funny that we're talking about Kristaps so much. I don't know if you guys heard, but he's
Yes.
questionable
Yeah, I
for
saw
it.
game 3.
Gonna bring
Yep.
up he hurt his other leg, so the calf
Yes.
injury was in one leg, and then he had an awkward fall while he was battling, I think, with Derek Lively for a rebound, and he kind of was like his gait was a little off. And after the game, it was like, oh, he's got they described it as like a rare condition that he sustained and suffered, which is again that would happen. It's wild, but they said day to day. So it doesn't seem like this is as severe as his previous calf injury that held him out for all those games. But it is appropriate to bring up because that could be that's how you get back in a series sometimes, right? As bad as you don't want to root for an injury or anything for anyone, but this may be what gets Dallas back in the series because it may just be one of those like confidence things. It's almost like when you're facing a pitcher out there on the mound and he's mowing people down, they take him out. It doesn't. Oh yeah, we still have no hits, but now I don't have to face that guy anymore, right? It's like, we're still down 2-0, but I don't have to deal with Porzingis out there. Good,
Well,
great. I mean, a jackpot.
You know who outside of the Mavericks organization, who's excited that Porzingis might not be playing in game 3?
Brian Scalabrine.
Me. Because I decided to place a little wager on who wins what game, and I had
AJ.
I had Boston in game 1, Boston in game 2, Dallas in game 3, Boston 4, Boston 5. So I have Boston closing it out in 5. So come on, big money!
Did you clear this with our resident betting expert, AJ Pittis?
No, I'm a bit of a wild card when it comes to my FanDuel account. Thank you, FanDuel, sponsor us. FanDuel, give me some damn credit.
Since we already lost the Uniqlo possibility,
Yeah,
we'll pander
you call
to
the stupid shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, FanDuel, give me some credit, man. I use your app an appropriate amount of times. If you need help, call a hotline.
Okay, thank you.
Bet responsibly.
And anything else from the basketball series that you think is notable? I think Kyrie Irving is going to have to show up more. That's your only shot. I mean, we talked about how they got the two best players on the court at all times. Well, that's not the case because Irving has been not that good. Doncic may be the best player on the court, but Tatum and Brown have outplayed Kyrie. In that, if you're going to win as the Mavs, that can't happen. You got to be superstar level.
Those guys have to be beyond, otherworldly is the correct term.
I don't think, I think, and I'm sure I'm going to have to make the same point when we talk about hockey, but how many, I understand that they're going to sweep, saying that inherently generates engagement, but how many times do people need to learn this lesson? 2-0 does not mean they're gonna sweep. My philosophy has always been you don't panic until your team drops a home game.
I agree. I was just about to say that, Kamala, because you're expected to always win at home.
I get so fed up with a 2-0 series. Do you have any idea how many times in the last 24 hours I've heard a commanding lead looking for the sweep? I'm 2-0's commanding?
It still is.
It's taking care of business though,
because it means TCB. You're halfway home. You're halfway home. That's a big deal to be halfway home. But you're right, Kamalo. If you're the Mavericks, you're disappointed you didn't take a game, especially that game 2. It just kind of felt like they should have been able to.
Yeah,
with,
that
Porzingis,
game was very
Porzingis
close
not
for the majority of the game.
Porzingis wasn't as effective. He was still good, right? It felt like you had the ability, that was the one you're going to steal if you're going to steal one in Boston. And so you could say you're disappointed, but you're right. Okay, we get 2 at home. We should be able to take care of our business there. And now when we go 2-2 and you just make it a best of, best of 3? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's anything can happen in best of 3. So that's got to be your mindset. But you're right. I mean, it just sounds good. You hear it because it's possible. Right? If it's 1-1, you can't have a sweep. Right, No one's
Yeah, it's
halfway
because
there.
and it's also because when you watch those two games, for some it happens with all sports all the time. When you watch those first two games, like, wow, how could they lose? How are they not just gonna roll over them?
Hmm.
And then they just
Yeah.
come out flat, or the other team comes out with some juice, something different.
Well,
I mean, it
Porzingis is
happens.
hurt, and Kamalo's bet stays alive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you going to share that money with the show?
Yeah, you guys might see a little kickback
All right. I like that.
somewhere or
That's.
another.
I mean,
Maybe I'll use.
I did predict Celtics in 5. You all looked at me like, oh.
Yeah, but I kind of had to put in the work to figure out the games, right? That's why this is a good bet, is because I
I agree
picked
with you on
out
those.
the
Yeah,
order.
I like the order.
Don't co-sign
the
now.
games.
The bet's
The
already
games
in.
we
Don't
play.
co-sign now.
The games we play. Moving on, we're going to go to NHL. The finals in the Stanley Cup Finals on the in the other sport.
Billy boy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick. Go
Shampoo is better.
No conditioner better.
Call the fire department. This one's out of control.
Yep.
Don't put it out with your boot, dear.
Yep. But I didn't want to go full into it because that would derail everything we've worked so hard to cultivate here on tonight's show.
Yes. Culture.
Yeah. If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
That's the grossest thing I've ever heard.
Yep. Well, actually, yeah, we're gonna move on to hockey, where I hope no one is peeing their pants. But we got the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. We talked about them before. Oilers, McDavid, Draisaitl, maybe the two best players out there. Looking for their first cup, looking to bring Canada back a Stanley Cup for the first time in 30 some years, maybe exactly 31 years. The Panthers, who have been ruthlessly efficient and physical and just kind of taken out these powers in pretty easy fashion. Like, it's been a struggle, but easy hockey wise, almost like just throwing proverbial haymakers. But you've got those two teams taking on each other.
Literal ones too.
Yeah. Cool thing about this series is the longest distance between two teams in a Stanley Cup final ever. So you've got the Panthers in Sunrise, Florida, traveling all the way to across the continent to the Edmonton Oilers up in Alberta, 2,541 miles between the two cities. I think it is the largest distance you could possibly have. I don't think there's another two teams that could play
Vancouver.
that would.
Yeah, Vancouver, right? Can you?
But is
Vancouver.
that
You think
further?
Vancouver's close?
But Vancouver's so much further south, though.
It is it is a lot further south.
I just know that whenever the season starts up, everyone always says, "Oh, Vancouver's travel schedule," because apparently they have the toughest. Like, they have like the longest average, right?
I don't know about that though. Like, I mean, maybe they do, but it just maybe Alberta's a little further east than I think. But I thought it was right next to British Columbia was the province of Alberta. So I thought this was the furthest apart you could possibly get, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's Vancouver, Florida. But anywho, like they like to say, we've gone through two games in that series. The Panthers are up 2-0. They took the first two games at home. So like Kamala was saying, we're up in arms, the Panthers commanding lead, but they did what they're supposed to. They're supposed to win the first two games at home. However, the cause for concern is that Edmonton's strength is their goal scoring, right? Highest scoring team in the league. You've got the best player in the world, and they've run up against the reincarnation of the Berlin Wall and Sergei Bobrovsky, who has been fantastic. He has allowed one goal in the two games. So first game one was a 32-save shutout where he was phenomenal. Game two, let up one goal. They went on to win 4-1. The Panthers did in game two. And he is the third goalie in the last 50 years to allow one goal or fewer in the first two games of a Stanley Cup final. So he's playing at a legendary level. I mean, we've known he's fantastic. So it's not like this come out of nowhere. He's a
Yeah.
former Vezina Trophy winner.
Two-time Vezina Trophy winner.
Two-time, I believe. And I think he's up for a third
He's a
this year.
finalist. He's a finalist against Demko and Hellebuck.
Yeah. So it's not like this is a Cinderella story for him, but this is kind of playoff Bob is what we're seeing. Like the legends of that. We're seeing his best work, basically, right? The culmination of a career of Bobrovsky. You're a disgrace to the force. Right? We're seeing this all come together for him. And so that is where the biggest issue is. If you're going to panic, it's about how do we generate more pucks in the back of the net. And that's hard because of the way the Panthers play. They're so physical. They play such a tight checking game that they limit your quality scoring chances a lot. And they keep the puck in their zone. We've talked about this before, like what they did to the Rangers. And it's going to make it difficult, right? But that's going to be the big adjustment, I think, is can Edmonton generate more quality scoring chances? Because, again, their only goal was one that squeaked through the arms of Bobrovsky. You could argue he should have saved it. They could easily have gone scoreless in 2 games.
You could also argue that their more quality scoring chances came in game 1 versus game 2. I think
I agree.
In game 1, I think Edmonton was hitting their 2-line pass, touch on, then into a breakaway series, like those sets very, very well. I think Bobrovsky probably faced, I'd say 6 or 7 one-on-one chances in game 1, whereas I think he had 1, and Kachuk was poking at McDavid the whole way down in game 2. But yeah, I think Edmonton, in game 2 kind of either let their frustrations get the better of them or decided to drastically switch things up and tell me if I'm out of line, but it seemed like Edmonton was trying to play Florida's game in game 2.
Happens all the time with Florida. That's why I love Florida so much.
Florida, it seemed like Edmonton was trying to keep up the physicality and be the ones to initiate like the post-whistle scuffles, and look what happened.
Get you out of your game.
You had a game misconduct early on against Fogle. Draisaitl took a really bad penalty against Alexander Barkov. I mean, that was a messy, messy game. Nurse got hurt. I think Knobloch needs to kind of sit his team down, calm them down, and kind of say what we've been preaching is that, guys, it's not time to panic. It's not time to really press that button yet, because they have to come play in our barn for the next week.
Yeah.
Right? They have the next 2 games in our house. And if this casual fan should learn anything from this, it's that the Edmonton fans are turning out. They're selling out the stadium for away games in Edmonton for people to watch on the Jumbotron.
And in that massive courtyard area or whatever.
Their massive courtyard that kind of Tessa and I were talking about how it reminds us of the Battery in Atlanta, because it just backs right up. Yeah, exactly. It's like a team village, right? Of restaurants, bars, Jumbotrons where people can watch, and Edmonton's going to turn out for it. So it's not time for Edmonton to press the panic button. I think they need to get back to what they need to do, because game 1, my issue with game 1 was that they split up Draisaitl and McDavid. Did you guys notice that? Even strength 5-on-5, Draisaitl was skating line 2. And then they were doing this weird thing where after a successful Edmonton penalty kill, Draisaitl and McDavid would then skate the next shift together before splitting back up again. Draisaitl was almost effectively being double shifted because of how many penalties were going on in game 1, and then game 2 they bring him back and they pair the 2 together, and it was Draisaitl, Hyman, and McDavid, I believe, in line 1, and then they just don't play their game. It's insane. It goes to what I was saying last week, Nick, where how do you motivate a whole team to just do your job and keep doing what got us here, right? And Florida, their whole team, same sheet of music. They have their marching orders. They know what they need to do, and they're going to get it done because they don't want to lose in a final again. Whereas Edmonton, it just seems like we're gonna like, oh, come on, Connor, like, give us some magic, dude. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the announcers in game one were even saying like, oh, we don't see Draisaitl on the first line. We think that might mean that McDavid is going to get to play a little selfishly tonight. I was like,
He's best when he's making
gentlemen,
plays
you don't
for
have
other
enough
people.
talent to win on talent alone.
Yeah. But
Thank you, Herb.
yeah. But there's one thing though that you mentioned too, like, and we talk about this all the time with Florida of how physical they are and how much they get teams out of their game. And it's something I've said before with the Rangers series, and I'm going to continue to say it because it doesn't just apply to hockey. Just because the other team is physical, you don't have to match their physicality. If you're not built that way, you're going to get into bad spots and you're going to get out of your game. Play your game, play what got you there, match the intensity, not their physicality.
Like
They're Florida's
it's almost
built
like
in the
go ahead.
trenches. They're built in the trenches, right? They want to rough you up and they want to be nasty about it, and that's their style and their big bodies.
Their mutters breaking their mane.
Absolutely. And if
His
you're
mother was a mother.
Edmonton, if that's
Mother
not
was a
your
mother.
style, don't play it.
I think Edmonton just got discouraged early on. Like, we peppered Bobrovsky. We had 6, 7, 8 one-on-one chances, and we couldn't elevate the puck and we couldn't score. And so then it was like, this plan isn't working, throw it out. Like, no. Go back
Stick
to the
with
drawing
it,
board. Keep that A plan because it's your bread and butter, right? Like, no one does what Edmonton does better than Edmonton.
Yeah, you dance with the one who brung you, right? But yeah, so we got two series. The home team, both series went up 2-0. The critical game now is the next one because, as we know, it is nearly an impossible task to come back from a 3-0 deficit, right? Like you said, Colin, 2-0 doesn't mean it's over, but 3-0 basically, for all intents and purposes, is over. There's never been an NBA team come back from 3-0. In hockey, it's happened more than any other sport, but it's still, I think it's like 4 times, maybe 5. I think it's 4.
It's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. You can't bank on that. So this next game is going to be the most important. So something to look for. The next one is to see, like the boy said, will each of the now home teams, the Mavericks and the Oilers, match the intensity and use their A game to try to win, as opposed to trying to be diverted by what the other team is trying to dictate towards them. But yeah, so that's just a fascinating thing to look for. Maybe see if Florida can get their first one ever. Could be kind of cool. See more rats in the streets. But
some people have even said that, like, if you go up 2-0 and then you win game 3, you almost like skate light in game 4 and try to win on home ice in game 5. I'm not saying that's what happens, but like a lot of people will theorize that, like, oh, we're up 3-0.
I think it's more desperation from the other team.
They've now been backed into that corner of you're forced to be the most desperate because you're guaranteed now that this could be the last. Whereas, at 2-0, technically you know that you're going to get 2 more games. But move on to the college realm. Before we get to the men's College World Series for baseball, I want to highlight the Women's College World Series because Oklahoma softball, they defeated arch rival Texas. They were the 1 and 2 seeds. Oklahoma was 2 for, crazy. Number 2 seed. It's crazy. They've been so dominant, but OU wound up winning in 2 games over Texas. They had to come from behind victory in game 2 to win the title, and it is their 4th straight. Coach Patty Gasso over there has created a true dynasty. They are the preeminent program in softball. Like the way the UConn was with Gino Auriemma, like 20 years ago, where it was, the odds are they go undefeated. Like that's basically what OU softball has been. Like you could argue that it was like a down year because they were number 2 and not number 1, right? And they still won the whole thing again. So Patty Gasso over there is, a fantastic coach. She has created something very special in Norman, Oklahoma.
Imagine being a senior and never and always winning a national championship every year you played.
I think there's 3 or 4 girls on the team. I think it was 3 who, they got 4 championships, right? And that's nuts. It's amazing. But so I thought that was really cool to see. wanted to
Dude,
bring
they have
up
5 seniors that did that.
5. That's right. That's amazing.
Yes.
You literally you can't do any better.
No,
No.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Unless I
Gosh.
guess you redshirt and then you get like a fifth or something, but
Mhm.
you didn't really contribute to the first team. I don't know how much they redshirt in softball, but
You
I'm
may,
sure it's
yeah,
done.
you may, yeah. But yeah, I thought that was definitely worth noting and mentioning because it's amazing. You win 4 in anything. I don't care what the sport is. It's
It's
amazing. But a
insane.
sport like softball, which is difficult the same way baseball is really difficult, to win 4 in a row is nuts.
Mhm.
But the next thing we're going to talk about though was going to be the men's College World Series. All the tickets have been punched to Omaha. So you've got the number 1 Tennessee Volunteers. They're a number 1 overall seed. They should be taking on next number 8 Florida State out of the ACC. Number 4 UNC. They took out your Mountaineers, boy, in a
Yeah,
kind of heart wrenching fashion.
both games.
You could argue West Virginia should have won both those games
Yes.
very easily. It appears UNC will be taking on number 12 Virginia. Virginia, this is their 7th trip to Omaha, their 3rd time in the last 4 years, and including back to back this year and last year for the Hoos. Number 3 Texas A&M, looks like they'll take on the only not nationally ranked team, which is Florida, with our boy Jack Caglianone. And then you have number 2 Kentucky. They'll take on number 10 the NC State Wolfpack, who just punched their ticket. They were the last one to punch it when they took out Georgia in Athens. So you have 4 SEC schools and 4 ACC schools,
Yeah, it's
which
pretty
is
sweet.
kind of amazing.
It's pretty sweet.
To
It's a
see that.
loaded field, by the way. Like, I mean, you said Florida's the only one that's not nationally ranked, and they have a top 5 prospect.
Yes.
Like,
And Florida got there because they beat Clemson. Clemson was the nationally ranked team, but they beat them 11-10 in 13 innings on a walk off to advance. After that one, I don't know if you saw that Clemson catch the kid made,
that was
complete over the
incredible.
shoulder to save the game too. If he doesn't make the catch, the game's over. I
That
think that was
was
the 11th
like
inning, 10th or 11th inning.
that reminded me of like Aaron Rowan.
Yes, except he wasn't bloodied and
He didn't break his nose
permanently
on the fence,
maimed and
but
scarred. But yes,
the way he caught that. Yeah.
do you not know that catch, Comlo? Kids, for those of you at home, Google Aaron Rowan catch, and you're going to see a fantastic play and a lot of blood.
It would
For
have
those
been
of you
exactly like it if it
who are
was
into
if
that.
he had some blood and gore to show for the play.
Yes. But those are your final 8 in Omaha.
Omaha?
Omaha.
Yeah.
Boy, what you looking for?
Well, I'm looking at the first matchup, UVA UNC. UNC is not at home anymore. They were 35-3 at home, and that kind of plagued West Virginia a little bit, I think. But on the road, UVA is one of the hottest teams in the country. I'm looking at that one as the first matchup. Tennessee is the number 1 ranked team. Have to watch him. And there's a guy in Florida State, Tibbs, who had over 90 RBI this year, which is a stupid year
It
in
almost seems
college.
impossible.
It is, yeah. He had 26 home runs, I think, and 90 RBI, and hit like 360.
First off, through God, all things are possible. So jot that down.
Yeah, and then obviously you want to watch our boy Cags.
Yes.
But yeah, I want to do some shameless self promotion for West Virginia, just because I know I talk about them a lot, but because I went there. But Coach Randy Mazey, this was his last year. He officially retired after 12 years. Basically, when he was hired, he was an assistant at TCU. West Virginia hired him. West Virginia told him when they hired him, we are really considering cutting the baseball program from the school. Instead, what happened is they built a new stadium. They hosted a regional in 2019 and got to their first super regional ever in program history this year, as this last year,
Damn.
which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I heard that one of the things he said his introductory press conference 12 years ago was, I want to be having practices in June instead of press conferences in June.
Yeah.
And they were able to do that this year and previous years too, which is pretty amazing. I did see that he was retiring. It's kind of it's an amazing achievement to build something out of essentially nothing and to make something sustainable.
Yeah, and
Because
it's in a place that I mean, the amount of times I was watching the regionals, or no, I was watching the Big 12 tournament, and the amount of times the announcers, when talking about West Virginia, said, if you told us that Morgantown, West Virginia would host a regional, we would have told you you're crazy. And they did when they did it in 2019. They're like, it was one of the most amazing things for baseball in the state of West Virginia.
Quick, who's your favorite West Virginia baseball player ever?
Jed Jerko.
Thank you. The Jerko store called. They're running out of you.
That was always my fantasy baseball team. Always. The Jerko store called.
Yes. Yes.
He hit I believe he hit 100 home runs in the show.
Yeah, he was a good player. He was playing on some of those horrible Padres teams, but still, a second base position, put those numbers up. That's pretty sweet. Now I'm going to move on to MLB baseball, the show, like the boy just referenced, and I think the first thing or person we should talk about is Aaron Judge, because he is just smashing its nail. Yeah. Like, he is absurd. So I just kind of, for the casual fan, some of the big stats, right? He's got a 305 batting average, which is 12th in all of the majors, which, as you'll hear, that's the worst category he has, is batting 305. 24 home runs as of Sunday night. I think he didn't play yesterday, so he's still sitting on 24. That's number one in the majors. 59 RBIs, number two behind, I believe, Jose Ramirez.
Yep.
1139 OPS, on base plus slugging, number one. He has 21 doubles, which ranks number two in the majors. His 436 on base percentage is number one. His 703 slugging percentage is number one, which makes sense because his OPS is number one as well. So you combine those two. He has 55 walks, number one in the majors. 51 runs, which is number three, slacking there. And he has 5.0 WAR, which would rank him number one. He is on pace for 58 home runs, which
is a pretty good year.
Yeah. Is that good? Yeah, it's pretty good. So he is literally doing. He's the best player in baseball right now, right? I've heard our boy Mark DeRosa of MLB Network has talked about before of that when Aaron Judge is playing, he is the face of the game. He's the face of baseball, and I agree. He's showing us right now that he's the face. He signed his big deal to stay in New York to be the captain, and he's producing. Another crazy stat. He's had 30 extra base hits, 3-0, in his last 30 games. The only other Yankee to do that was Joe DiMaggio in 1937. So he's literally doing things. Every list they show of him, the other people on the list are Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle. Costanza? No, not Costanza. Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, Mantle, Judge. Like that's who's on these lists, right? Literally, it's not just he's doing really well, right? He's on a different planet. He's doing things that these legendary players who played so long ago are the only ones that can compare. He has 62 home runs a couple years ago, right? Roger Maris, the only other person to get that without using steroids. So it's amazing. He gets a lot of publicity for it. He gets a lot of attention, but you could argue he doesn't get enough. As crazy as that is, because he's the best player in baseball right now, and he's playing center field too, like one of the more physically demanding positions. So thought it was worth talking about him, bringing that up.
Yeah, when he's locked 100%. In, he looks effortless at the plate. Yes. Like we talked about pitchers being effortless. Man, Judge, he looks effortless. I mean, he's a big body, and when he's letting that ball travel, I think is one of the biggest things for him, because that slider away is always kind of like the go-to to get him out. And when he spits on that and lets the ball travel and just uses that big body and strength, I mean, it looks effortless, and you're seeing why he's the best hitter in baseball.
Yeah,
and you can argue that the next best hitter, 1B, is his teammate Juan Soto.
Yeah, I agree. And it's the perfect yin and yang, especially because you get them from both sides of the plate, but they also are such multi-dimensional hitters. There's no, he's got a hole here, so we're just going to pitch him there over and over again. You can't do that to either of these guys. They can hit every pitch out. They can hit a home run from foul pole to foul pole.
And they don't take at-bats
No
off.
one can do that.
Right? I mean, there's no at-bat they take off. Soto especially is a grinder every at-bat. I mean, that's got to be annoying as a pitcher. And then and then after you get done with those two, Stanton comes in and try to knock your head off and hit
Yeah.
something 500 feet. But
Yeah, it's almost
that's a
almost like you're
tough lineup to
worn.
get through.
You're almost worn down after
Yeah,
facing, Judge and Soto.
and
That
Rizzo,
Stanton.
and
Well,
then
yeah,
Rizzo's another one that's just gonna.
for
He's like a Joey Votto type, just gonna work the count constantly and kind of be frustrating. And then
I
you
mean,
hit those two. It's a
it shows in their
tough.
record. I mean, I think you could make an argument that almost all of the Yankees bats are running hot right now, right? Like they're the number one team in baseball for a reason right now. They're plowing through the AL East right now. I mean, they all of them. I mean, you could talk about any one of them. I feel like on any given night, Volpe, Soto, Judge, Stanton, Verdugo, Austin Wells. I think he's looked pretty good
he
behind
he
plate for a
he
while
he,
too.
he hasn't played as much. I've seen Trevino out
Oh,
there.
has he been as Wells like when Trevino needs a night off?
Yeah, because Trevino just has an intangible. You kind of need
Mm-hmm.
him out
Yeah,
there.
I've
He's
just gotten lucky then because I think I've watched 2 Yankees games this year, and I think Wells was in both of
well,
them.
I love Austin.
It might be a pitching matchup too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
Like
love
like
Austin
Stroman or
Wells's.
something might have been the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
I love his swing. I think Austin Wells has a great swing. Does Cole use Trevino as a catcher? I feel like Cole used to
He's
use
one of those that has a specific catcher, doesn't he?
Cole used Higashioka was his catcher.
Is Cole
That's who it
back?
was.
Is he still hurt?
He's supposed to be coming back soon, allegedly.
I mean, well, you want to talk about also one of the biggest reasons why they're playing so well. Luis
Heel.
Keel, whatever. He is.
Yeah.
It's
His ear.
Christineth. Are
You
you
idiot!
I've only read it in books. His ERA is a 2.04. He's 8-1 of the year.
Yeah, no, he's been lights out. He's been the ace that they needed with Cole absent. So yeah, the Yankees are dangerous, and if you can get some more production out of some of the other parts of your lineup, like a LeMahieu, a multi-time batting champ, Rizzo's still not pumping out like he used to. Verdugo has room to grow still. If you get some of those guys to step up a little more, it is dangerous. Now it's like, how are we going to beat them? And that's what the Yankees have been trying to build. And it just seems like finally, so I think Soto and Verdugo were really the missing pieces. Those lefty bats that put good quality at bats together and can spray the ball all over the field. Because the other thing with it is that in Yankee Stadium with that short porch, there's a psychological effect with the pitcher when it lefties up. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be Nick Punto up there.
Oh, good call.
There's
Nick
a
Punto.
psychological effect where that pitcher is so afraid of giving up the home run because they see how short it is and they just know if I make a mistake, anyone can put it out. Doesn't matter. Scott Podsednik is out there. He can put one out. And that causes you to miss your spots. And the most dangerous thing you can be as a lefty is being in New York, is being able to hit the ball all over the place because you know that they're going to try to focus on the outside part of the plate. And what's going to happen is if they know they can't get you out there, the mistakes are going to start to come middle in, and you're going to start pulling balls over the fence, and now the pitcher's head is spinning and they don't know what to do. So that psychological effect of just having a lefty, and I've been saying this for years, of that the Yankees were too much on paper. Look at the talent. When they throw out a whole righty lineup, it's like, oh, well, these guys can hit balls out the other way. It's not the same. It's hitting the ball out the other way, as great as that is and as remarkable it is that you can do that, is not the same as having any lefty out there, because that lefty has the capability of just popping one over, and that's more in the pitcher's head. The pitcher's not worried about an opposite field homer unless you're Judge or Stanton, right? And they're still not worried about that. They're worried about Stanton hitting the ball 500 feet and embarrassing me. But when that lefty's up, they're worried about that middle in mistake getting deposited for a cheap homer, and now my ERA is going up. We're down. Like it that's in their head. It is, and you can't discount that human aspect of it. Moving on, another guy who was just mashing its nail over the weekend was Teoscar Hernandez of the Dodgers. The Dodgers had so many offseason acquisitions that got so much attention, rightfully so, right? You got Yamamoto, you got Ohtani, you got Glass now, but Teoscar Hernandez was a huge get for them. And during that series against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, he went 6 for 12, which is 500, by the way, batting average, spoiler alert. He had 3 homers, 9 RBIs. On Saturday, he had 2 home runs, including a grand slam. He looked hitterish, as they like to say. Like they didn't know what they could throw him to get him out, because he was, on everything. And a lot of his, I think 2 home runs I saw were on like kind of change ups or balls moving. Like it wasn't like, oh, they put a straight fastball right down the middle. It was, he was doing damage on pitches that were moving, and that's scary too. So Teoscar Hernandez, he's been doing pretty well this year. I think that was a good acquisition for the Dodgers. I thought he deserved some love on
Sure.
that aspect. The Blue Jays, I wanted to bring them up. They had a nice week here. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, former Yankees great, had a walk-off single against your O's, Comlo, and on Wednesday for a 3-2 win. And then Kevin Gausman, former Oriole great, he threw his first career 9-inning complete game in 272 career starts. He threw that on Saturday. It's amazing he'd never thrown a complete
nasty split.
Yes. He had 10 strikeouts and a 7-0 shutout win over the A's of Oakland and Sacramento and Las Vegas. So thought I'd give some love to the Blue Jays. Then I got a series
AL
of
East, man.
comeback wins. Oh, the Blue Jays, give some love to them before, because a lot of rumors I've seen were that they're going to be like fire sell, like Bichette and Vladimir get traded, which is just crazy.
Not at this moment yet. They're 3 games back on the wild card.
I mean, you say this moment, but even if they get to the trade deadline and they're out of it, how could you say we're going to get rid of these 2 guys? You think you have a better chance of contending in the future without them?
We've talked about this so many times, and I think we should continue to talk about it because it's something that I think needs to change in sports, or at least in baseball, is the potential. Fall in love with potential, and let's trade and let's get these prospects. And it's just like, well, Vlad Guerrero is one of the best hitters in baseball. I mean, when he's hot, when he's going, and then Bo Bichette's one of the best players, or one of the best shortstops. I mean, you can't just trade away just because you don't want to pay some guys and then try to hope prospects get better. Stop falling in love with potential and realize what you have.
I agree. I think that what the saying is, 1 in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. That's kind of that to fruition. But next I was going to bring up the Royals, another kind of upstart team. We've talked about the Guardians before. They're leading the AL Central, but the Royals are kind of nipping at their heels, and the Royals are exciting. They're like legit. I think they're here to stay, mainly because of Bobby Witt. Right. Well, I'll run through some of his numbers here in a second, but I did want to highlight a come from behind win that they had on Friday. They were down 8-0 to the Mariners, and they rallied to come back. The aforementioned Bobby Witt had a game-tying triple in the 9th inning, and then he scored the winning run on Nelson Velasquez's fielder's choice because of the speed Witt was able to score. Velasquez beat out the double play, game over. So Bobby Witt, it does not get talked about enough. You could argue he's the most underrated player in all of baseball, and I don't think that's that big of a stretch either. I think part of it's because he plays in Kansas City. I don't know why he doesn't get talked about enough, but he's got a .320 batting average, which is 3rd in all of baseball. 11 home runs, 47 RBIs, which puts him top 10 in baseball. 19 steals, which is 4th. 927 OPS, which is also top 10, all out of your shortstop. He scored 56 runs, which is the most in the majors. He's 2nd in the majors in triples, because that goes back to his game-breaking speed. He's got 7 triples, and he has 85 hits, which is good for 2nd in the league behind Luis Ariz. So he is, we talk about Judge, I still would say Judge is the best player right now. Bobby Witt is up there and should be talked about more. Yeah, I know your boy Gunnar Henderson, Kamlo, gets a lot of the shortstop attention because of the homers, but and this isn't an insult to Henderson, but Bobby Witt's the best shortstop in the American League. Bobby Witt should be starting the All-Star game for the American League at shortstop. He's been the better player, just flat out. He doesn't get talked about enough. But this week, cool enough, the Yankees play the Royals. Their series, they should be going on right now. They had their first game on Monday. So I thought that was kind of cool. That's why I wanted to mention the Royals, is that we got Judge and Witt going head-to-head. Hopefully in this kind of in-week set. So
there's also another electric guy out there, Michael Garcia. If you watch him play too, he's not the level of Witt, but speed.
He's their third baseman?
Yeah. And let's give some love to Salvador Perez.
He's had a career year right now.
I mean, he's been fantastic. He's been fantastic forever there. And another guy, I don't know what this Kansas City, what you got to do in Kansas City baseball wise to get more credit. But Salvador Perez has accomplished basically everything you can accomplish in the game of baseball and doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And I don't know why. He's going to make another All-Star team probably this year. He's closing in on double-digit All-Star teams. He's got so many Gold Gloves. He's got a World Series. He hits home runs. He hits for average. He's great defensively. Even if he's not playing as much behind the plate as he used to, he still catcher's his primary position, right? It's not like he's shifted to first base primarily. So he doesn't get enough credit either. Bobby Witt doesn't get the credit. The whole Royals team doesn't get the credit. They've had great starting pitching. The lefty, I forget his name, but he's been Reagan's, I think his name, Cole Reagan's.
Yes, yep.
Seth Lugo's been great.
Seth Lugo, yep. He's on my fantasy team. He looks awesome.
So their whole team's been playing fantastic. I don't understand why enough people aren't talking about them. But
it's because they're in the AL Central. I think it's the issue because how many times do we talk about the Guardians? They're first in that division. They're awesome. And Jose Ramirez, I think, is the most underrated player in the league and has been for the last 5 years.
I think Bobby Witt doesn't get. Bobby Witt should be talked about more because he has more of that electricity. That's why I say he's more underrated, is because we talk about the electricity of the athletes.
True,
like an Ellie De La Cruz, in an O'Neill Cruz, right? And Bobby Witt in a Julio Rodriguez. And Bobby Witt should be talked about with the athleticism of those guys every time.
Well, Jose Ramirez steals bags too.
Jose Ramirez has been fantastic. You could argue that he should be a Hall of Famer based off of. He's literally all he's done.
I think we're gonna look up
just mash.
I think we're gonna look up and go Adrian Beltre.
Yes,
style,
I was just about to say that. Yep.
You look up one day and you go, he has 3,000 hits. He has 500 home runs.
Yeah,
where'd this come from?
Exactly. And that's a dude, amazingly, who was cast off so often of he's not even that good. He's just over every year. He's always overachieving. How can be overachieving if every year I bat 280 with 35 homers?
Right.
How is that overachieving if I do it over and over and over again? Right.
And steal 20 bags or 25 bags. Yeah.
So he's and the RBIs for him are crazy. He always is up there in RBIs on some of bad offensive teams. So you're right. He doesn't get enough credit.
I think that's
Central
why
doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah,
Detroit doesn't get enough credit.
They might have the best
doesn't get
pitcher.
enough credit.
Detroit might have the best pitcher in baseball.
And Jack Flaherty. Yeah.
No, Skubal.
Skubal?
Skubal.
Jack Flaherty's been fantastic too.
Skubal.
Tarek Skubal. Yeah.
Tarek Skubal. He's I think third in ERA.
Yeah.
He's been unbelievable.
Yeah. So wanted to bring up that, get some AL Central, get some Tigers for our Guatemalan audience. But I had to do a couple comebacks I wanted to highlight. The other day, the Mariners were down 4-0 in the bottom of the eighth. They went on to score 8 unanswered runs, including a Cal Raleigh walk-off grand slam. I love a good walk-off grand slam.
That was against the White Sox, right?
I think so.
Yeah, all right. There is something to that I saw a stat with the White Sox that they have been up 4-0, I think 4 times, or it was hitting 2 home runs in a game and leading, and they have lost every single one of those games.
Oh,
no. They did it again, and the stat was, and they're up 4-0 right now after hitting 2 home runs, and they lost 8-4.
I actually have another stat with a different team that is very, very similar. So the next one is going over into Colorado. So the Reds were playing the Rockies. The Reds were down 4-0. They came back, tied the game. Then they go down 7-4, come back, and they score 8 unanswered runs in the 8th and 9th inning, including 6 in the 9th inning. Spencer Steer hit a go-ahead 2-run home run. Jonathan India hit a grand slam. The Reds went on to win 12-7. 10 of their 12 runs were scored via the home run. This is the first time Cincinnati swept Colorado and Denver since 2012, so a dozen years. But the better stat is that this is the 5th time this year that the Rockies have allowed at least 5 runs and surrendered the lead in the 9th inning or later. So they were up by, 9th inning or later, they're up, and they allowed 5 or more runs. It's the 5th time they did that this year. That's the most in a single season by any team since 1920. Right? So that's on that same level of ridiculousness that,
That
How
can't
are you
happen.
like it can't happen? Literally, they've got the most anyone's had in a season in 100 years, and you were not even in July, right? To allow that many runs too is the crazy part, right? That can't
Yeah,
happen.
usually
But
back ends of these bullpens have guys just throwing gas.
yes,
And it's just hard to hit. And it's just like you see one guy and it's almost like I would argue it's harder to come back. It's probably the hardest it's ever been to come back in baseball
yeah,
because
I
of
would agree.
how just lethal these back ends of these bullpens are. How does that happen to a major league team?
5 runs,
We're not at the All-Star
allowing.
break.
Yes, it's crazy. The last thing baseball wise was the London series, right? They brought that back this year. It was Mets Phillies. I didn't see Keith Hernandez make a crucial error, costing the Mets the game in the ninth inning, but I did see the first ceremonial first double play. Instead of the ceremonial first pitch, it was a ceremonial first double play. So Mac from It's Always Sunny went out there to throw out the first pitch to Chase Utley. Oh
Mac
shit,
from
the
South Philly.
stickers. And before I could do that, his wife, Caitlin Olsen, who plays D, came out there and said, no, we're not doing this. And they brought Bryce Harper out to go to first base. Utley went to second, and Mac went to short. She rolled the ball to Mac. They turned a 6-4-3 double play.
It's amazing.
Did you have a good relationship with your father? Me either.
Me either.
I
think
think
you'd be
you'd be-
impressed with my speed.
Yes. So
That was awesome.
that was good. There, the Mets and Phillies split that 2-game series in London. Anything else baseball wise before we move on?
No, sir.
Nope.
No, before we get to our favorite segment, I was gonna highlight some golf stuff for us. So in the world of golf, we had Scotty Scheffler, who seems to just win every time he steps on the golf course, unless he's getting arrested. He won the Memorial at Muirfield Village by 1 stroke over Colin Morikawa. It's the final tune-up before we get to the U.S. Open that we're going to talk about here in a little bit in a second. Canadia's Adam Hadwin finished solo third. Good finish for him. On the women's side, Linnea Ström of Sweden shot a final round 60 to overcome a 7-shot deficit entering Sunday, and she won by 1 shot at the ShopRite LPGA Classic. It's the lowest final round ever in an LPGA tournament, and it's the second lowest round ever behind Annika Sorenstem's 59 in 2001. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then on the LIV side, Carlos Ortiz of Mexico won his first individual LIV Golf title at LIV Golf Houston, and the Cleeks, who have your boy Richard Bland, Dickie B, they won their first ever team title. The Cleeks did. But golf-wise, I wanted to bring it up because these are the final tune-ups, like I said, on the men's side before the men's U.S. Open. I think the women's PGA is in 2 weeks, but men's U.S. Open is happening this coming weekend at Pinehurst. So
number 2.
Number 2.
How many Pinehursts are there? There's like 12, aren't there, or something?
There's several.
We only care about number 2.
Only number 2. Yep. So before we move on, any picks for us for the U.S. Open? Who you got?
Yes.
Kamala, who do you got?
I'm going to ignore Scotty and Rory.
Well, you should ignore Rory.
Instead, I'm going to give you.
Oh, damn, Nick.
I'll give you 3 that I think have a good chance of winning, and or like being a top 5 finish. I'm going to be keeping an eye on Zalatoris. I'm going to be keeping an eye on Cam Smith, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on our boy Ludwig. Those are my 3 picks for the U.S. Open. I think all 3 of them, their iron game and the way that they flight their irons, I think is going to lend itself very favorably to the turtleback greens on Pinehurst number 2.
Boy,
yeah, I'm gonna give you 2. A guy that I really like that I want to see win, Tommy Fleetwood. I feel like he's knocking at the door.
He's been knocking at the door.
Yeah.
Always. Just got to walk through it, man.
Yeah, I know. Just gotta watch. And then another guy, Victor Hovland. I think he's fun to watch. And
he's a good player.
He's started to turn it on. What? Why are you shaking your head?
I just feel like Victor has no confidence in his game. He's switched swing coaches. He's just like out to sea with no paddle right now. I mean, like even like was it the PGA Championship where he finished second? He even said I was thinking about withdrawing. Like the guy has no confidence in his game. I don't know what happened to him in the off season, but like the guy I think could benefit from like confidence therapy because he's great. I love Victor Hovland. Everything about him is electric. But
You know what's going to give
like,
him a lot of confidence? Winning the U.S.
winning
Open.
the U.S. Open.
Yes. So
What about you, Nick?
My pick to win is Keegan Bradley, and I'm going to go
Love
so
it.
far as to say is he will win by shooting a really low final round and a come from behind, and he'll be done well before the final pairings end. So he'll come into the final round behind 3, 4, 5 strokes,
Whoa.
and he'll shoot a low final round and he'll win. That's
right.
my
What do you
pick.
think?
Keegan
He'll
Bradley.
shoot? What do you think he'll shoot?
I don't know what's par. Is it 70, 71,
72.
72? He'll shoot a 64.
On that course?
I had the tournament low at like 65. That's a tough score to go low on.
That's my bold prediction. Is he'll shoot the tournament or at least the final round low. So 64,
okay.
65,
Make sure to
66,
send that
something
clip
in
in
there.
the Freezing Cold Takes Twitter account.
Yes,
Make
I
sure.
don't know. I love Keegan and I love his game, and I feel like ever since he got like scorned from the Ryder Cup team, he
should have been on that team.
Absolutely, Justin Thomas had no place on that team over.
There
Keegan
are a couple
Bradley.
other Cam Young. Was he on there? Shouldn't have been on there. Or Sam
I
Burns.
I would have
Sam
kicked
Burns.
JT off.
There were a couple that shouldn't have been on there.
But yeah, I think Keegan is he's playing like sneaky good golf this year. Like I feel like no one has really given him the credit he deserves, and I love watching Keegan Bradley play. He's one of my favorite golfers.
Yeah, so that's my pick. Keegan Bradley will win the U.S. Open.
That's a great pick. I love that pick, Nick.
Thank you. I dabble in the things that you love. That brings us to our final segment, which is our favorite segment. Each week we kind of pick a different topic and we talk about our favorites, not who we think are the best or what we think are the best, but what are our personal favorites. Because as fans, that's what we tune in for. Is what are the things that we like to see, not necessarily I have to see the best. So like the Savannah Bananas of content. What do you like to see? What's your favorite stuff? So this week, in honor of the London series, we went with our favorite British athletes. So had to qualify you for that is you have to be from the Isle of Britain. So sorry, Rory McIlroy, you don't count. Shane Lowry, even though Rory pissed you off before, you don't count. All right. You cannot be from Ireland. You have to be from the Isle of Britain. So England, Scotland, or Wales. Our favorite British athletes.
So specific.
Great Britain, not the UK.
Yes. I had to really think about this one.
Yes. So
this messed me up for like a good day.
Yeah, but before we get to this segment, I want to recognize our sponsor for our favorite segment now and in the future, and that's going to be One Legacy Title and Escrow. Go ahead and visit them at onelegacyflorida.com. See how they can help you with your next closing. One Legacy Title and Escrow, because your legacy matters. So who wants to start us off with our favorites?
Well, real quick, just first sponsor.
Good read.
First sponsor, too. Thank you.
One Legacy Title and Escrow.
Yeah.
I'll
go first. All right, so I got my usual dog and pony show here. I got honorable mention and then my 5 picks. Honorable mention, I'm going to start you out with a guy that you might know. His name is Phil Taylor. Phil Taylor, darts player.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I'm including darts.
Yes.
16-time world champ Phil Taylor. And the reason I like this isn't just because of like the chips that he's got. No other dart player has a winning record against him. I think that's huge. But it's also darts, so I included it in the honorable mention. Doesn't crack the top 5. Moving on, number 5. We just finished talking about golf, so it's super appropriate. I got Sir Nick Faldo, 3 times Master champion, 3 times the Open Championship winner. Sir Nick Faldo. Number 4, Lewis Hamilton, 3rd highest number of wins on the F1 circuit. Lewis Hamilton at the 4 hole. The rest of them are all going to be soccer players or footballers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Number 3, I got John Terry, former center back for Chelsea FC.
Yes.
This guy was my kind of player. Gritty, tough, the kind of guy that you don't want to dribble at. You pass around because this dude would jack you up. He was like the Scott Stevens.
Yes, I guess Chris
yes.
Pronger.
Yes, he was. He'll hit you and he'll hit you good. Love John Terry. Not the kind of guy to take a dive. Not the kind of guy to really like pull any cheap shots. But he was just a tough dude. Number 2, everybody knows him, whether it be from his marriage to a beloved Spice Girl or a Netflix docuseries. You might know him as Bex. I know him as David Beckham.
Who's that?
Posh Spice. So I might catch some flack for this one because that's a guy who always underperformed while wearing the England jersey, especially from the penalty dot. But David Beckham, I think, deserves a spot in this list almost more than anybody. The guy's iconic, right? He's just an iconic player, and he took his talents all over the place, and he won all over the place.
He's still in commercials. I just saw him in a Stella Artois commercial.
Yes.
Getting ignored by the bartender.
One in England, one in Spain, one in Italy, one in the MLS, and now he's continuing to grow the sport by owning the team in Miami and bringing in more top names like your Lionel Messi's, your Luis Suarez's, to come and play there, which is awesome. So Beck's at number 2. Number 1, my personal favorite. Loved watching him every Saturday, Sunday morning in the English Premier League. Center mid for Liverpool for most of my youth was Steven Gerrard.
I knew that's who you were going to have one.
Best to ever do it. Incredible accuracy and power. The guy was just a workhorse, man. I could get misty-eyed watching Steven Gerrard highlights.
Stevie G?
Yeah, he was awesome. Super Steven Gerrard. Yeah, that's my list.
I love it. Boy.
Nice. Yeah, I struggled with this one a little bit just because I don't follow sports across the pond.
How many countries they got in this country?
Mm-hmm. You gotta get it in to get 3 points. My first one, I went honorable mention, then top 5. Honorable mention, I did this one because my wife watches this reality show called Love Undercover. There's a guy that was in the Premier League called Jamie O'Hara. And he was hilarious in the couple episodes I happened to gaze upon. So I have him in the honorable mention.
Nice. Good job, Jamie. Congrats.
Number 5, I went with Andy Murray, tennis legend. Andy Murray has 3 Grand Slams. Pretty strong career for Andy Murray. Number 4, Wayne Rooney. Mostly because saying his name is pretty fun, and also send it in, Wayne. Send it in. Him and Peter Crouch, right? That's who that was.
Yes,
and Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais. Send it in.
Call me Langley. Call me shortly.
Number 3, legend Sir Nick Faldo. One of the best golfers ever. Doesn't need any more with Sir Nick. Number 2, Tommy Fleetwood, who I have high hopes for. I've just, the more I watch him, the more I'm becoming a fan of Tommy Fleetwood. I really like watching him play. And then number 1, also a golfer, the foul mouth, always lovely, Tyrrell Hatton.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Keep a microphone on him at all times.
Yeah, stealing my thunder because my number 5 spot belongs to Tyrrell Hatton as well. He went full Roy McAvoy not long ago and broke his putter and had to putt with his freaking iron. Because once you break a club, you can't use it. He's awesome.
Didn't he throw the double deuce up on the green or like at the wind? Like I'm pretty sure he flicked off the wind at one of the more recent tournaments.
That sounds about right. The old man yelling at the weather. The clouds. Yes, Tyrrell Hatton is who I had at 4. I made sure I represented every country too, by the way. So Gareth Bale is my next one. Gareth Bale is awesome. I he put Wales soccer on the map for a little bit. Wales was contending in Euros because of him. And
Yes.
it kind of seemed like they've gotten some more talent to come out of that country, largely because of Gareth Bale, and a guy who was able to go on to Real Madrid and star. Like, it's not someone who had to, felt like he had to stay. So globally, he's been an icon and someone he was just like watching Ibrahimovic, very much so. To me, was like watching Gareth Bale. He has some outrageous goals.
Is
But
he
he's
the
also
most famous Welshman since Christian Bale?
I would argue Gareth Bale may be more famous because of the soccer aspect with
Actually,
it.
I believe isn't Mick Jagger Welsh?
Oh, I don't know
Is
that.
he?
But Gareth Bale is also a fantastic golfer, by the way. Thought that was kind of cool. Number 3 is Peter Crouch. How could it not be Peter Crouch?
Yeah.
He stands out to me at his Stoke City days. You call me Lankley? Peter Crouch is awesome. Peter Crouch could get the ball in the net. He was an underrated goal scorer, even though that's, he was a striker. That's what his job was, to put the ball in the net. He's not really giving you anything defensively, especially at his size, but he was underrated, because he was kind of like the butt of a lot of jokes, but he was a really good player. But it's still the mysticism around watching a Peter Crouch out there play soccer was the best. And his Stoke City days stand out. Like, he played a long time in the Premier League for a lot of different sides. And after he, Stoke really, they haven't been back in the Premier League since they've been relegated. So Peter Crouch, number 3. Number 2, Andy Murray. He's from Scotland, by the way. So there's your other, country represented there. But Andy Murray, like I said, multiple-time major champion. He was the first British man to win Wimbledon in God knows how long. It was like 70 years, I think. It was something crazy. He also won a gold medal at Wimbledon during the London Olympics. So he is, I would say, the most famous British tennis player maybe ever. He is
the only player to win 2 Olympic gold medals in singles.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's going to have.
Knighted?
He has to be. He has to be.
Hmm.
They're going to name part of Wimbledon after him. They got to find out where and what they're going to name.
Oh, that's cool.
What, Kamla?
I like that.
Yeah.
What?
They're going to name something after Andy Murray at some point there. They have to. He's been so instrumental, and he's so revered there. And number 1 for me was Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy, the striker for Leicester City. His story's crazy. He was playing like non-league football, like semi-pro football, and just eventually kept scoring so much that slowly people noticed him, and Leicester took a flyer on this dude. I think he was even like in jail at some point, like in and out of jail. He shows up there with like a broken wrist, and they went on. He was very instrumental in them winning their improbable run to winning the 2015 Premier League title. And a lot of the reason I love the way he plays because it's so direct, right? Yes, you have to have the balls being sent to you, but he's so aggressive in the runs that he makes and so lethal and just like decisive in trying to score. Like he plays like he has nothing to lose because he's come from where he came from, where he literally had nothing to lose. So there's a difference, to me, the difference when you watch him play versus watching someone who's more polished out there, who's thinking about, well, should I, make this move and kind of slide this in the corner? And he's like, no, I'm gonna freaking blast this and I'm gonna score, and I'm gonna make this run to score. And you know what? I don't really care if I get 3 offsides. I'm trying to score. I'm out here to score, and I'm gonna be aggressive about it, and I'm gonna have no reservations. I'm not gonna hesitate, and I love that. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention Brad Pitt in Snatch. He was Tyson Fury's, basically the Gypsy King. Roy Kent, the great Roy Kent. And, of course, William Wallace. Shoots firebolts from his eyes and lightning bolts from his arse. You watch him ride that horse, that's an athlete. And if you think that he wasn't athletic to wield that broadsword, how big that sword was, and to take people out with it, athlete right there. The original great British athlete. William Wallace.
I know William Wallace.
Yes. So that's my list. Any comments?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Yeah. I got a comment.
Yeah, I got a comment, you jabroni. Most famous Welshman. Mick Jagger is not Welsh. But there is
No,
a
he's not.
more famous Welshman than Gareth Bale and Christian Bale. Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Oh
interesting.
yeah, Odin.
I now take from
Clarice.
you your power.
Yeah, Odin.
Some
That's a
a
good
nice Chianti and some fava beans.
one. Is he knighted?
Yes, he is.
Okay, sir. Okay, nice.
Sir Anthony Hopkins. Yeah.
I have one last thing before we wrap up, Nick, if you don't mind. I looked
Mind?
up.
Why would I ever?
I looked up. I looked up the distance between the Florida
Oh, I did
Panthers
that too.
Stadium and the Canucks Stadium. It's 3,400 miles.
Wow.
I drew a straight line from Vancouver to Sunrise, so like not driving or anything, just a straight line, 2,780 miles.
Interesting. So that would be. So we haven't reached the pinnacle yet.
No.
We need to get the Canucks back in the series.
The Canucks got to get in there.
Well, after they rioted last time, I don't know if they have anything left to give.
I'm honestly surprised they didn't this time.
They greased the light poles. What are you gonna see? What are you gonna do?
Grease this.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna do it for us on our show this week. Again, big shout out to our sponsor of our favorite segment, One Legacy Title and Escrow. Visit them at onelegacyflorida.com.
Heck yeah.
As always, for the boy, Stephen Vesci, for the man, Stephen Comlo, I am the coach, Nick Vesci. Remember, watch the U.S. Open. It is Father's Day this weekend. That's how you know the U.S. Open. It always is played on Father's Day weekend. Reminder, be decent to each other. Take care, Guatemala. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.